have a surprise guest that may join us in a bit, so don't mind us. Somebody comes springing up here on stage.
Oh, is that her? Speak of the devil and she shall appear.
Really? Her.
Ladies and gentlemen, Janina Gavankar.
Hey. You're the next contestant on The Husband Is Right.
Yeah, nobody associates Janina with husbands here because they haven't seen any of her episodes.
I know, I want to see you. Hi. Hi, baby. I'm coming. Guess what I caught up on yesterday? Last night.
Yeah, this was the episode leading into your story arc.
Wait, hold on. Preface. I'm in Atlanta shooting another CW show, The Vampire Diaries. Woo-hoo, but I have to go to set in a half hour. So I can only stay. They're going to bring my cars as close as they can, and then I'm going to just...
Oh, well, thanks for making the time.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
So if you need to spring up in a run, it's totally cool.
I mean, it's definitely going to be like, oh shit. Oh god, I gotta go.
Yeah, no, it's a high-end problem having actors that are working all the time and in demand. When we had our premiere at Haley, it was like everyone was working on a broadcast show, and they're like, I don't know if I can make it. I don't know.
Yeah,
It takes a mini project or that.
Yeah. Listen, can I just say, y'all are so fancy. Because it being the first web series to go to first of all, anything going to Paley, the Paley Center is fancy, in case people don't know. But the fact that you were the first just makes me excited
And proud.
And also, I'm really happy to know that people are finally realizing that that's good content. Doesn't matter what you watch it on. It's good. Period.
That's exactly it.
So it's okay to everyone. As we know, Janina's going to have to get up and go. Good to see you, girl.
Hey, good to see you too.
Wink, wink. So when she needs to scamper out, we're going to let her, unobstructed, right? So we're going to do some nice Q&A. How does that sound? Is that all right with you guys? Feel a little interaction? So Brad is here with us, and Jane and Janina.
Yay!
In case you get tongue-tied.
3 p.m.
So do people line up to ask a question? They just ask
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
Can we hear you?
Yeah, I'm sure we can.
Okay, I like it. Just raise your hand and I'll call on you, all right? Sir, go for it. Out the gate, get it.
Hey.
I volunteer as tribute.
So, since last year, it seems like reality has caught up a bit with the premise of Husband. So, what do you got in store for us in the future, Jane?
Well, that's really a question for both of us because we plot these out together, and Brad sort of takes charge of the storytelling from there. But yeah, more reality, more of the marriage sort of settling in, and the two of them figuring out what their roles are in this marriage.
I like that.
Trying to make it work.
Trying to make it work.
And she's had a Miley Cyrus moment?
I can't bend like that. She outdid me. I'm pretty bendy. Not like that.
Oh, I can do it.
Yeah, no, Jane's a twerker, man. She twerks hard. She twerks hard. We can't give away our secrets, but we have all kinds of ideas coming up that I think the culture will catch up to.
We won't tell anyone.
It's our secret.
Yeah, all those devices that are staring at us. We won't tell anybody either.
Posting something online is completely different from telling something.
Yes, right. Stumbling upon it. But you can tell them that you are playing with stereotypes, and I mean, a lot of the things that you love about the show in general are, still really prevalent. Figuring out, playing with gender roles and expectations. Yeah, that's why the show is important, and that continues for sure.
Yeah, I think that idea that we've talked about in different ways every time, and we talk about that more. That sort of idea of like, I think what's popular right now is, oh, well, yeah, he's gay, but he's not a stereotype. And like any minority sort of, like, oh, well, they're black, but they're not a stereotype. And I kind of feel like, why do you care? Like, yeah, I'm gay, and I love Madonna. And I love camping. And like, if you need me to hook up your stereo, I can do that too. And then we'll go shopping, It doesn't matter. Like, let people just be. Like this whole anti-stereotype thing is a different formula for the same problem that it's trying to fix, you know?
And it's those little moments in the show where it's generally Cheeks who says something deep that way, something sort of insightful and relevant, political and of the moment. Those always come from Brad, and they are the most watched moments of the show. And I think that's very interesting. That you should think people would go to rewatch the funniest joke or the kiss, but it's actually the make you think statement moments.
The kisses are pretty juicy though. I gotta say. I'm taking some notes. I'll apply them to my next gig.
Yeah, I hope people have seen the episode that went up on Thursday where we see the completion of the I Do Over arc, where we see them make the wedding vows, which is really, I saw a lot of people getting misty on Twitter when they were sort of reporting having watched the episode.
It's a beautiful location. Where did you guys film that?
That was this crazy Gothic mansion in the hills.
Yeah.
It looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
The art directors, the art
did it
direction
right.
are cray.
Well, that house was like furnished. Actually, that house was a production house.
Oh, okay.
So whatever you shot there, it came with all the walls and furniture, but everything was kind of sticky. It was like in person, it looked kind of
Like a club, like when in the morning when you
With
get
the
the
lights
lights
on.
on.
with all the lights
Too
on.
classily.
Film is like that though.
Huh?
Film is like that. I mean,
Yeah, when you see
Yeah.
it with
Rap in person.
It looked
Right.
really beautiful.
It's getting more difficult. It's getting more difficult with HD.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's like, they got some more dollars for this season because it looked really expensive.
Yeah, and
Well,
the
since we're good, we know how to stretch a dollar.
The art direction Janine is talking about really shows up in the next set of episodes that she's in, where we're actually in a different location, and there's some really gorgeous. Yeah, it was a house that was a house that people were living in, but it was sort of very starkly furnished, or perhaps even unfurnished.
So they just moved in. I mean, they hadn't really moved in. They had bought the
They had
house.
furniture, but
And
they
they were
hadn't
like
decorated
sleeping
it.
there, but it was very sparse. And
So art direction came in and did add everything, and it's really, really beautiful.
Pretty gorgeous.
And apparently Cheeks and Brady just can't keep a house.
I know there's a lovely young Dr. Who had a question.
Hi, Brett, I will totally go shopping. Just wondering if any of your ideas might include more graphic novels?
Oh, she's holding the husband's comic.
Yes, please.
I would be down for that. I mean, I know that, we're, Jane's got like 3 shows.
I got some shows.
And I'm working on this show and potentially more of the show. I would definitely be down for that though. If Dark Horse was like, hey, let's make more, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like we sort of, when we came up with like, what comic book tropes do we want to play with? Like, we just sort of picked the first 6 that came to mind, but there are so many more. There's a lot more kinds of stories.
Adventures, absolutely.
Yeah. There's no, we don't have a pirate ship story.
Pirates. Cheeks is a fabulous bird on his shoulder.
Next question. Debbie Shana, yes ma'am.
So first, I have to give Jane props. There was a Buffy panel this morning when we were talking about how the first time in ages they were reading for script, and was actually things that they didn't have to deconstruct or paraphrase because it was actually something that would actually come out of a human's mouth.
Oh, really? Oh,
Made emotion, and so I know you worked a lot on that show.
Oh, thank you, yeah.
Giving props to give a couple shout outs to your sisters.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for letting me know.
And second, my question, so with this kind of arc of, I mean, we talked about the show's content, but also the show's medium of being content exclusively online. We're seeing more of it now. I think everyone's catching up. How do you think that affects the creative process and the show development process? And are we going to see more kind of a little bit more, I would think, boundary pushing content because of a medium that would allow for things?
We sort of identified the one way in which it does affect the content, because we sort of write the same script we would write for broadcast, except we're allowed to do it.
A lot more fucks.
Yeah, a few more fucks.
But yeah, even though we can, that doesn't mean we do that.
It's not abuse of privilege.
Yeah.
It's just.
There's a little more license in terms of language. There's more license in terms of content. Not that anything that we're showing shouldn't be on broadcast TV.
Oh, and would be if it
Yeah.
were. a man and a woman, absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh, gosh.
exactly. But yeah, it gave us that extra freedom. But we also see the show is very much in the vein of a traditional show, and the sort of the writing process, jokes per page and everything, and the kinds of jokes we tell, that's identical to what you would do.
Well, and it forces you to be more creative too. I was just writing something on the flight here, and I wrote, well, that's shitty. Shitty, I don't want to say shitty. Well, that's, and I haven't come up with something funny yet, but, you know, if you can't say shitty, then what can you say? And come up with something ridiculous.
From the actor's perspective, it is, okay, real talk? I was talking to a True Blood cast member yesterday. We went to dinner, and I was saying, because he's off like doing big fabulous movies now, and I was like, that's so nice for you. But from the actor's perspective, you know, the one fundamental difference is who is funding your program. Another way of saying it is, who do you answer to? When you work on something like cable, the person you answer to is a subscriber who's sitting on the couch. When you work on a network, the person you answer to is tied with bleach. That's the fundamental difference. And for the web, it's the person from the laptop who's going to click away in 2 seconds. And it's much like cable TV. It feels exactly the same for me to show up to your set than it does to something like True Blood. Yeah.
That's good.
That's why I was like, what? Yes.
Yay.
When?
Yeah, no, we're basically exactly like True Blood. When people say what's happening, True Blood. It's the same show.
There's a whole essay about that online.
Yeah,
There's essays about everything.
It probably is.
It probably is. Do you, whenever, I wanted to build on what you were saying about content with web content, do you shorten to keep the interest? Is there like a pattern to, let's keep this to 10 minutes?
No. Well, sometimes.
Okay.
I did, when I was recording commentary for the, oh, there's going to be commentary episodes. Yay! You heard it here first. And when I was recording commentary, I remembered part of the reason we structured I Do Over the way we did with a flashback is so that we could get the guest stars on the first page. I was like, I want Amy Acker's face in the first 30 seconds. Yeah, and that was...
She's so good. And like creepy body parts in the fridge, possibly. So great.
Yeah.
She's so great.
That role of Claudia, where I really came up with that and really believed in it and thought about it.
Fucking great.
Well, and she totally got it. Like, she came in and knew exactly how to, that was the way she performed it when she first read it, and she just nailed it. So good.
But yeah, structure, we were talking about structure. And also we were very, very strict in season 1 to not have any scene more than 2.5 pages, which we've loosened up on since. But so yeah, there is a certain, we try to keep things very tight. But you do on regular broadcast television as well.
But then also, you guys have this thing where, we haven't talked about this, so please tell me if I'm wrong, but you guys are creating episodes that are 10 minutes long, but then they also fit within the 30 minutes, right? But 30 minutes is a hell of a lot different than 22, which is the normal amount that we all know, right, for broadcasts. So you're making 8 full...
No, they're closer to 24 minutes.
24 minutes, okay.
They're pretty much broadcast length in their run. And,
Okay.
Yeah, and the way we break up the episodes individually is just like you would see an act break like between commercials.
Okay.
So it's the
So
same.
you keep them basic, so you keep them 8 minutes then? 8
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our
yeah.
goal.
So yeah, it's actually
shorter or longer.
very, so when you see them sort of, if you just like, if you haven't seen the 3 episodes that are up right now at CWC.com, watch them, and if you just watch them 1, 2, 3, you'll be seeing it, it'll look just like a
feels like a, yeah.
Yeah, and so that, but there still is the challenge of that 8-minute episode has to have its own little beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
Which an act to me does.
And also, let me just say, good on the CWC, because when I went there, the first thing I saw was 2 very handsome men together in bed, handcuffed, and I was like, yes. They give 0 fucks. They're like, They're like, what's good? This? Great. Done. Great.
Pretty cool.
Yes, question. Set up that photo shoot, the photo shoot that has the two different photographs you see, the two of them with the handcuffs in bed and the one where Brady's vacuuming.
That was really cool because I sort of just thinking out loud was like, I don't know, you know, like a photo shoot, we can do some promo or something. And they were like, okay, great, we'll put it together. What are you thinking? And I was like, I don't know, like maybe there's a shot with, you know, twin beds or something. And they're like, cool. And then they sent over this whole, like this 6-page packet with like sketches from a professional artist and like shots that they pulled from other like posters to sort of conceptualize the whole thing. And I was like, yeah, that looks good. Let's do it.
Someone else? This man.
I love you guys. So I'm really interested in your writing process, how you work together, and I mean, like, kind of like feet on the ground, how that works. Does someone write the outline, or do you guys talk about what you want to do, or how that?
We like to do the thing where I say one word, and she says the next word, and I say cheese.
Right. Yes. And I say, oh God, we've tried this before.
It's always not very good.
Yes,
Takes so long.
you guys came up with Ottoman Empire at the same time.
Oh, that's true. You've seen that.
I was there for that.
And I Dream of Cleaning. We were on a plane and we were brainstorming episode names, right? And I wrote down I Dream of Cleaning, and I was like, oh, I what if Jane would like that? Well, I'll wait. So I'm writing other things down. And Jane taps me and she slides her paper over and says, I dream of cleaning. And I'm like,
This must happen a lot because I even sent you guys a photo from wherever the hell I
oh
was.
my God, that was weird.
That was really weird. I sent a photo. What was it even?
You were stepping out of
High class. Okay.
High class.
Here's what it was. We're brainstorming names for the production company that we formed, the joint production company that has husbands, right? That owns husbands. So one of the things we were thinking about was classy, spelled with a K.
Because they're classy.
Right, classy productions or high class. And you were somewhere and you saw like high class auto repair.
I was in Alabama. High class.
H-I-K-L-A-S.
I was like, come over. And I sent it to both of them. I get an email back at the same time.
Time stamped at the same minute.
The same
That says, mine says, nothing says classy like a K.
And I said, nothing says high class, like spelling it with a K. Yeah, we do that a lot. We arrive at the same joke.
They'll sit class. Nothing does sit
Right.
But yeah, the actual answer to how we do it is we generally don't sit by side and write that way. If we do that, we end up fighting over every line. Like, I don't see where you're going with this. Well, let me finish it. You'll see where I'm going with it.
Yeah, no, writing's a solitary thing. And
Yeah.
I don't understand how anybody sits in the same room and writes with somebody.
People do. Some writing teams do it that way. Some do it the way we do, which is that one person takes a pass at it and the other person rewrites, and we email it back and forth.
We'll come up with the outline together.
Yeah.
But that's sort of a, you know, that takes 4 hours, and you're at dinner, and then you're, you know, walking around the park or whatever. Whatever, walking around the park.
We spent a long time breaking every planning episode. We were in a hotel room with cards on the wall, and so we tried to treat that like a real writer's room, and you don't let the other person get away with like, no, we'll find that theme when we get there. And it's like, no.
You guys did a big rewrite, actually.
Yeah.
From my first draft to my second draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we go back in and like, oh, this doesn't work. And we have to be honest with each other, which is painful. Like, I think this thing we wrote doesn't work.
But listen,
And fix it.
you guys do way more work than every other web series I've ever seen or been a part of in any way.
Oh, that's interesting.
You guys treat this deadly fucking serious. You do.
Comedy team.
We're deadly fucking
Deadly
serious
fucking serious.
about being funny.
Deadly fucking serious. Husband season 2.
It's just like True Blood.
That's what you call a callback. With a K.
Have the two of you developed a way of seeing where you step on each other's toes, or there are like different approaches of how do I approach this, or are you just brutally honest and just being ripped off?
Pretty honest.
Because you don't have time. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sure it's all
time, and we both learned that the other person can take it. Like, there are times we send each other emails while the other person has to step away for a moment and go, okay, let's take a minute before I respond to this. But mostly, like, I think we take each other's criticism very well.
I've never felt like I've had to step away. That's like we never got
They're selling celebration.
It's like the Facts of Life theme or something.
Celebration.
But not at all.
Feedback. I mean, yeah, no, I feel like it's not an ego thing, and we know when the other person's right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's worse.
This character doesn't want anything in the scene. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, see, that's, if
But why is that worse?
it's worse because it means you have to do something about it. If you say there's a criticism,
That's
and I
really
go like, yeah, like, oh, no, I can dismiss that because, you know, you forgot this thing. You, oh, that's like, oh, then it's done. But if it's a thing that's actually right, then I've got to, like, deal with it.
Oh, no, but see, it gets me excited because I'm like, now we found the thing that's not working, you know what I mean? Like, we just instantly made this better. Like, even if we don't have the solution, we found something that's wrong that we need to change. And I like that.
That's true. Anyway, it's quite a process. It's really fun though. Like, I've never had a writing partner before, and I'm really glad I do because particularly the producing, which Brad does, and I don't really do so much of, because I would never be able to do this without Brad.
Look what's landed on your shoulders, sir.
Yeah, it's good, huh?
So
You said to me once that there's a showrunner gene.
Yeah,
There's a
then
thing.
Brad's got it. Brad is an orange showrunner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care about what people want because that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
Oh, is this your show? Okay.
Yeah.
Do what you're told.
He definitely gets into a little bit of like a zone, in a good way. I've never seen you be pissed off at anybody, but I've definitely seen you go, okay, good.
I remember one day, and you and I like were still getting to know each other, and we'd always been like, you know, light, and everything was fun, and like we were really getting into the thick of working, and somebody did something, and I reacted. I said something, and I got a little stern, and you were like, oh. He's pissed. And I looked at her and I was like, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's high stakes, and you know, you're working harder than anyone because everyone works really hard, but when you're at a position where you have to oversee everything, you're exhausted. So if somebody's like, oh, you know, we didn't clean the windows before this shot, is that a problem? It's like, well, yeah, now I have to like hold up the set for 15 minutes while you clean the windows.
Or when you cleaned them, it was actually very impressive.
yeah, it was like, and a lot of times, this is what's interesting about watching you guys, because you are a completely legitimate production where people have their jobs. And then the department doesn't want to have to step on that person's toes because of that pulling of that piece of paint or paint tape is somebody else's job. So they don't go, whatever, they can just go, and we're going,
Right.
you know? And so people don't want to step on each other's toes. But then on a smaller production, it's like, who fucking cares? Let's fucking go.
Right.
So Brad is like, done. You know, like, just rip the tape. You know?
Next question, Aslan. Yes, so.
Who would you consider to be your comedic influences?
Oh, Lucille Ball comes up a lot. Yeah, Brad, I think, really draws from classic TV.
I remember telling my mom one time my comedic influences, and she was like, are any of them men? And they aren't. I was like, oh yeah, the guy who falls down. Yeah, like Carol Burnett, Gilda Radner. Yeah, right.
If you listen to Brad's intonations in upcoming episodes, you will hear Rachel from Friends.
And that is so, it's one of those things where I'm sitting and editing and I'm like, hello, Monica Geller.
Was it Monica? No, I don't know.
No, there's a Monica and a Rachel.
There is.
The Monica is season 1 when Brady and Cheeks are fighting about updating the status, and Cheeks goes, oh, yeah, I'm the girl.
Yeah.
And then, and there was, I'll say,
Very Moore one.
well, that was intentional.
Yeah.
And then there was another one that was, it was very Parker Posey, okay? I was just like, whoa, weird.
Just one
Channeling. Yeah, because I mean, it's not like, it's strange when you see an influence come through you that you were not intending, you know?
Well, that's definitely a good gift. I mean, because it's all a cycle. The people that influenced you, you're giving it back, even if it's unintentional. I mean, that means that they truly did inspire you. When you can target it and go, oh my gosh, that's just like that, and that is. So I hope to see more of that. Ever thought of bringing those girls on the show?
Yeah, sure. Especially Lucille Ball, you'll get huge ratings.
Just like True Blood.
Aw, it will just make it sad.
Poor show. Let's hope we're like Jennifer or something. That'll be kind of great. Or Carol Burnett. Okay.
Yeah. And Carol Call, what she's doing these days.
I died. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, they heard it here,
Still
folks.
alive. He's got her killed Madeline Kahn, like you're still dead ladies. Some are still alive.
Or Chelsea Handler.
Chelsea.
Do you love her?
I think she's. I'd probably like her more as a writer than I would as a. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's legit.
I like her as an actress. I think she's very natural. No, I really.
Actually,
There was a really bad movie.
that movie with the two guys,
Yes.
one of them I'm in love with,
With Reese Witherspoon.
Where she was the sister.
and she was the best thing in the movie.
And she was great. Like,
the
I
best thing in
totally
the movie.
thought that she was just sitting in the kitchen talking to her sister.
And
She
was totally
so
in love with her
authentic.
gross
Yes,
husband.
Totally.
Yes.
Agreed.
Totally ding ding. Tom
You
Hardy.
should-
So get that,
Right.
go get that movie that neither of them can remember the name of.
This means war.
This means
It needs more. Worst movie ever.
That was terrible.
But, oh my god.
Tell me.
I went to school with Reese Witherspoon
Really?
in Nashville
Now,
back in the day.
I want to talk about her real quick.
Sure, go for it.
And you don't have to say anything. But I was in my hotel room just earlier today watching Legally Blonde 2 because I was like, I wish this was the first one, but I'll watch it anyway. 'Cause it's like, you know, you really want to get, and you're just like, no.
Sally Field, you hoped.
And it's, well, you know, she's always amazing, but, and I'm watching and I'm going like, she's so good at being adorable and nice. Like, you're just like, how can you, there's no way you could not be that person to play that, right? Because if she is, then she needs to win an Oscar for that role. Is she like that, or is she not at all like that? You know what I mean?
Unless you can't go Atlanta.
She's very much like that.
Okay, good.
Unless she's pulled over by the police.
Except when drunk. But when she owned it, the thing I love about her is she got drunk, cussed a guy out, but then was on TV and fully owned it and was like, I've played a lawyer and apparently I think I am one when I'm drunk. She was awesome about it. And she was like, he did exactly what he was supposed to. I was completely in the wrong. She totally owned it.
Yeah, that's really smart.
But
She got good advice, or she's really.
I was thinking,
yeah.
she's got a good PR team as well.
So she owned it because a lot of people would have come up with a million other different excuses.
Yeah.
We've all acted like an ass when we overdid and pulled the card of I'm so much more than whatever. I mean, we've all done weird.
Do you know who I am? Well, you were about to
I
find out.
walk
Yeah,
up
right.
to cops and just
She
start
said
saying,
to cop.
excuse me, officer. Can I have your attention to you? Who I am? Yeah.
It may seem as though we've drifted on to off topic.
Sure, so sorry.
But I actually find that when I'm just listening to Brad talk with people, don't you start thinking about episode ideas? Don't you start going like, okay, Cheeks are ready to get pulled over.
Get arrested.
Cheeks will not let it drop and gets them both thrown.
It gets the diva card out. Going to, yeah,
He's right.
and the cop is Carol Burnett. Or Chelsea, whichever.
Or Carol Burnett sitting in the slammer with
That's even better.
I think I think the whole thing should happen, and we don't know. So it starts like in the middle of the action, right? And they get pulled over, and you're like, what is this crazy event that they've been having? And we don't know what the beginning of the night held. And so when Carol Burnett's like, I'm gonna have to take you in, I'm gonna have to search the car. Chelsea Handler is in the trunk. And that's the act break.
I like this plan. I think she'd be down for it.
Okay, I have to go. So if anyone have one last question for me? You haven't seen the episode. About our episode? My episode? Yeah, go for it. I'm a neighbor.
You're a neighbor.
And you can say, can we say your character name?
Yeah, it's already on the video.
What's wrong with me?
It's so funny because Elaine's character, Parker, she was doing an interview with the AP and she's like, my character, Piper. And it's really fun because Piper's the kind of character, and I was like,
Not your neighbor. I'm your neighbor, and she gives questionably great advice. Yeah.
she's well-intentioned.
She's got great intentions, and they know each other, kind of, but she thinks she's, I think I like about her, she's like, oh, you're my neighbor, but I know everything about you, I have good will too.
Right,
So,
that implies you need to be BFFs. Like, I live next door, this is how it works.
so, but yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see it.
I know we are too.
You weren't
Absolutely.
So she hasn't seen her own episode?
No. Dying.
Should make that happen this weekend. Here first, at DragonCon.
Are you showing it?
No, but no,
I'm trying to encourage.
Anyway. Will I watch it with the whole rest of the world?
Yeah, there's going to be, the next 2 weeks are bonus content, commentary and behind the scenes, and then after that the first episode of I Dream of Cleaning comes out.
Listen, I'm going to ask you guys to please continue to use social media to tell the CW that you love the show, okay? Because...
It's a promise, right, everyone?
Yeah. We're all talking about, like, finally it's happening, they're letting these things through and they're supporting them, but the only way they'll continue to is if they get positive reinforcement. So you just have to tell people who love the content to let them know.
Well, and they have, the CW has, between me and you guys, gone on record saying that it's sort of an experimental think tank as far as what shows they would like to consider putting on broadcast.
Ooh.
So if you want like half an hour of Husbands every week on
Right.
You guys can single-handedly make it happen.
go tell at CWC that you want that.
Yeah!
Janina, thank you so much for getting me McDonald's. Sorry for Bye, girl. Good to see you as well. We hung out together in Alabama a couple of months ago.
At High Class?
At High Class. I saw that same damn sign and everything. Because I say that, I was like, oh girl, that's classy really today. I saw him. Come on, what's going on? Hey, do it.
I was just wondering, if in this hypothetical future where husbands might be on every week, with your fabulously lovely busy schedule, Jane, would you be able to put in the same amount of work as you do now, or would we?
Yeah, I kind of would actually, because this the amount I've been putting in has really been a lot smaller than what Brad's been putting in. So that would become Brad's full-time gig, and I would continue to sort of swoop in, punch up jokes, consult on stories. But I don't think I wouldn't be like running it with you. I would still
You'd be in the writer's room, which is essentially, the dynamic that exists now.
Yeah.
But that's good on you, Chiefs, because that's a lot of trust. Because I mean, she'd already admitted that she doesn't really work with partners in writing. I mean, she's giving you a lot more of that creative control. But that's beautiful on you. Congratulations. It's not an easy field to get into. That's for sure.
Yeah, that is true. It's very hard to get a TV writing gig, and Brad is doing it the hardest way by going in, instead of trying to go in at the bottom and go, he's going in at the top.
Well, it just doesn't work its way down.
Whoopsie.
I used to be here.
You know what that is? I mean, I feel like, you know, when they're like, oh, there's so much competition in Hollywood, and oh, there's so many people trying to do the same thing. most of them aren't good.
That is a true
You
statement.
know what I mean? Most of them are not good, and they're really basic things that people fall victim to in their own writing, like, you know, fuck you, no, fuck you. That doesn't count as drama. You know, like, come up with something high stakes that's not pulling out a gun, and yet every script you read, it's like, fuck you, he pulls out a gun. You know, it's like, learn what people are doing the most that isn't working, and like, what are the most common things that people are like, oh, that's a big problem with new writers, and don't do those things.
And we both came into this both with the same rule independently, which is if you've heard it, don't write it. Just because you've heard, did I say that out loud, or that went well, or I just threw up in my mouth a little and it made you laugh the first time you heard it, doesn't mean it's going to make anyone else laugh again ever.
My favorite is when you're talking about when people try to imitate Jaws, and it's so clearly what was that dialogue? We heard some dialogue in some movie that was so clearly trying to be like thinky and intellectual and kind of stating the obvious in like a smart way, and it just was so painful. It's like, come up with your own style. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, I was in casting for several years before Dragon Con took me on full time, and it's impossible for me not to watch a film or television show and I see my background, and they're not even my background, it's somebody else's, and I'm just like, oh. So when you see terrible
Background actors?
Yeah.
So you're looking in the background going, that girl drinking her martini is drinking it too big, she's pulling focus.
Not put those three together because they're all three wearing black, clearly.
There wasn't.
Nothing wrong with it, you could have still been in the audience, but I wouldn't
What if the star requested it? What if the star was like, my hair looks blonder with all these men in black?
There's a really interesting, usually I don't notice background so much unless somebody
That's
is
good.
really pulling focus. Yeah,
That's good.
But there's an episode of Starsky and Hutch from like 1975 where they go into the bar because someone in the bar has information. They go into the bar and for no reason, everyone in the bar is a redhead. There's like 15 extras in the bar and they all have red hair. It's incredibly distracting, and all I can figure is that their extras didn't show up that day and they had to use extras from some show
the
where there
Irish
was
pub
a
across the
plot line.
street.
Yes. It's really, really weird.
So say we all, right? Ginger's forever, right?
Ginger's forever. Hey, your hand's been up for a long time.
Yeah, do it, buddy.
You mentioned about bad shows, but are there good shows that you're aware of that you could tell us about that you're interested in? Like stuff that's coming up on the web?
Oh, well, the other things that CWC has, Wilson Bethel's projects look very cool. Burning Love. I love Burning Love. That's now made the jump to broadcast. I think it's really, really well done.
Have y'all seen It Could Be Worse?
I don't think we have.
Worse?
It's by some of the actors from it's out of New York.
I think I've heard of it.
Some of the actors from Smash.
Oh, interesting. I watched Smash. Yeah.
It could be worse. It sounds hilarious. What is it about? I'm not learning anything. From the title. I'm not.
It's kind of like a Broadway actor trying to make it and having problems.
I like something where people draw from a really specific area, like a genuine life experience. That was actually the thing I really liked about Smash Hit, was I felt like it got a lot of the Broadway stuff in a way that felt authentic. There were other odd, ridiculous, silly things in that show, but the like.
She loves.
The right was getting so interesting.
Well. The numbers were not feasible in any way. There was none.
But as creative producer types, do you feel that it's giving away trade secrets when our audience can see behind how it really goes down? Because it's not glamorous. I mean, it's just really not.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with copying to it.
It's like demystifying it.
Yeah, like in the upcoming stuff, in the upcoming episodes we have, like I'll cop to like. We spend 6 minutes on the exposition.
Oh, you mean like in your commentary?
Yeah. I'm like, and this character's clearly brought in to sort of give us an opportunity to speak our political agenda, but don't pay attention to that. Because if you don't, if you just let it all wash over you, then it's entertaining, but if you're critically examining it, there are moments that hold up better than others, and it's okay to admit that,
That was one of the things that when Ron Moore always did podcasts for Battlestar Galactica, is he was very honest about, like, this worked, this didn't work, or wish we hadn't done that, or our original idea was better, and I think people really respected that, because it is very tempting when you're doing commentary to sort of just point out the good things. And I think that's really good that I'm looking forward to hearing this commentary. I haven't heard the commentary. I want to hear what you say.
Well, there are often times that I wish, like, I worked on an entire season 2 of Necessary Roughness for the USA Network. So I had to sit in all those production meetings. And I often wanted a camera on my shoulder just to be like, if you could hear the ridiculousness in this agreement between like, the budgets and the network, and like, Those meetings are grueling, first of all, and then if you're the target of the week, then it's grueling for them, and then you're just kind of hoping you don't get noticed, and yeah. I'm not saying every moment was delightful.
Were you telling me about the network, with the cat?
The cat?
It's been established, there's a cat. It was I can't remember. Somebody was talking about how they had a show where the family had a cat, right?
Right.
And there was a scene, like, at night with the mom and dad in the bedroom, and the network watched the dailies that had already been shot, so the scene was done. And they were like, I think maybe we need to go back and shoot the scene again. And they were like, why? And they're like, well, the cat needs to be in the bedroom because we've established the family has a cat. And they were like, what? So the cat's under the bed, the cat's outside. Like, why do you get the cat in the bedroom? So sometimes the network notes are.
Yeah, network notes can be very silly. Sometimes though they catch a thing that you genuinely missed, and you're so good, so glad they're there. And
absolutely.
I think it's going to be. There have been definitely times on Husbands where we sort of go like, I wish we had an executive on our show the way that you would on a broadcast show.
We solicit a lot of feedback from really smart people. Oh, you thought you were exiting. Ha ha ha. That's why
There's been a lot of great television, obviously, over the last 50 years, and as writers, are there any shows, from past or present, that you think to yourself, I would like to be a part of that? And also, along those same lines, are there any shows where you see your characters from Husbands like being a part of that storyline?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I definitely feel, I regret that I did not get here soon enough to write an episode of MASH, The Odd Couple, Barney Miller.
Oh my gosh.
Like all the shows that I grew up with. Maybe some of the more shows. Oh my God. All the shows that I sort of dreamed of writing for when I was a kid, and of course they were gone. But shows. And oddly, Brad has a lot of the same shows, even though we grew up 20 years apart, because he was watching vintage shows.
They're great television. But you know what? 20 years from now, somebody's going to say about your product. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, growing up, I was watching Battlestar Galactica and Once Upon a Time and Game of Thrones and everything that you've ever written ever.
People come to me all the time and say, I grew up watching Buffy. It's like, I can't possibly be that old. But I'm intrigued by your notion of like shows where you could imagine Cheeks and Brady blending into the world of a vintage show.
Sex in the City.
Sex in the City? Interesting.
I've never watched that a lot, but I love the episode where they go to LA. And they get the fake handbags. It's in some place called the Valley. There's like barking dogs. Yeah, that's interesting.
It's because you kind of have to match tone. I mean, I could mad about you. What if Paul and Jamie you were neighbors of Paul and Jamie? Although I think our show has that show has sort of felt like a one-act play. I think our show is more traditionally sitcom. Yeah, but that's an interesting question. We'll have to think about that one. I could see us debating that one.
Maybe we can like digitally.
Yeah, I was just.
Put Cheeks and Brady in the bush.
It could be a dream sequence where you create that type of feel.
Cheeks falls asleep watching television and it's a romp through classics that comes out.
We did name the production company Ottoman Empire after the Ottoman and
and it looks like an Ottoman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, no, you can see the logo at the end of I do over the third one that just came out on Thursday. You can see it looks like an ottoman.
Yes, and I think that show may be the closest in town to our
Van
show.
Dyke?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That would be an awesome pairing, really.
Suburbs and Hollywood and yeah.
You get to be Mary, so.
Like some feminine?
No. Who wouldn't want to be Mary?
Yeah, I would totally.
That's ridiculous.
And it was Laura, actually. But yeah, I love that. And the writing holds up on that show really well. I tried watching Bewitched, and I was like, I don't want to like this so much, it's not funny. And you know what? Oh, you know what? I always thought I Dream of Jeannie was, the Bewitched ripoff. I was always like, oh, and then so that was working, so they made it. I Dream of Jeannie works better than Bewitched. And I didn't think so, but I started watching and I was like, not only is it funnier, also, hello, Larry Hagman. Because, I forgot he was, I guess as a kid, he was,
We had them all here a couple of years back, and it was a real gift to have them here.
I bet. So, but then anyway, but now he's like my age, but 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting with like the slave master dynamic and the fact that it was the 60s and she was a woman and she calls him master and like she's supposed to obey him, but she doesn't. So like Bewitched was really interesting because it was about a woman's power that he didn't want her to use. You know what I mean? Like, oh, don't use your power too much. It threatened it. But Jeannie progressed that somehow.
Well, they're both in their own ways corollary for social change at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though on the surface they were very superficial and silly.
And that was exactly our design for Husbands. It's
Yeah,
like,
and it
see,
should
it's
be
this
that.
silly sitcom, there's nothing new about it, but like, wait, actually, there's something really going on here.
Yeah, I think that's amusing in general. People should have some sort of underlying message, otherwise you're just basically dissing them.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, we definitely set out not to just write a pile of jokes. We wanted it to be about something. And I think you can sort of tell the responses that we've gotten, the comments we see online, like sort of say people are getting it. So thank you guys for being so smart. Like, yeah, people are really, they really get what Brad is setting up to say.
Also, though, is that television in general right now seems to me anyway to have a tendency to talk down to the viewers.
Right.
You all don't do that. You assume, or to me it seems that you assume that we're all coming into this with a certain degree of intellect.
Right, yeah, we don't want to talk down, and we also don't want the characters to talk down to each other. So we made a real effort to avoid insults.
And there's enough of that in
thing.
life. That's the reason why we watch TV.
That's a good example of another, when people say we read my comedy script, all their characters are mean to each other. And so it's like, if 95% of the scripts out there are mean, make a script where everybody's not, they don't have to get along. It doesn't mean there's not conflict, but they're not directly mean to each other. Because that's not really how real life is anyway. Most people aren't vicious in an aggressive way. It's they say or do things that contradict what their real goal is. Anyone questions? Yeah.
Now, I don't watch True Blood, and I do watch Husbands. Maybe they should change their tagline. I'm going to watch it if that's the case.
Absolutely.
But in your writing and creation, did you ever think going to a broadcast, is that maybe your ultimate goal? And then when you do that, do you change anything? Like, well, this wouldn't work for broadcast. Do you step back or check yourself? Or?
Well, we would want to reboot the series. If we went to broadcast, we'd start with the pilot and go back and make a really, clean, simple story.
Broadcasting.
Right. Whether or not it's broadcast doesn't matter to me. I've always wanted to be able to make a full slate of half-hour shows that we can release.
And right now, that's who does that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like what the platform is,
ABC, opposite Modern Family.
Don't put us opposite.
Right afterwards, I meant like for an hour following. I apologize. Wrong word. Thank you, scriptwriters.
HBO, then just floating this out there, their community.
They're community.
CW is really cool. And I will say I was surprised, honestly, at how cool CW has been. And I think that they like the idea of having something that is not conventional and expected. I mean, remember those Gossip Girl posters? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Remember that Vampire Diaries cover on, what was it, Vanity Fair or something? Yeah, they like pushing the envelope, and I think that Husbands is a good envelope pushing show.
Don't go on.
And what else is like, people sort of go out with CW show, like it's all just young, pretty people. Check out my Mary Queen of Scots. No one else is doing that.
No, I agree.
Yeah. And we could do a crossover. Cheeks and Pretty.
Part of the next graphic novel.
Oh, there you go. Yes.
We have to do that. Like, remember the Friday night specials where you would have the crossovers between the primetime shows?
Oh, yeah?
Oh my God, Pretender and Profiler.
Well, I remember when Charlie's Angels took the Love Boat to Fantasy Island.
I remember when that daughter from Empty Nest would show up at the Golden Girls front door. You know, and they throw that moonlight party, and it was Barbara, and they didn't want Barbara there. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, we should totally consider crossovers with other young up and coming.
You guys, you're on to me. I can't think it without a fan going, what about this thing that you just thought in your head just now? What do you think about that?
We're so in sync with everybody out there. Like, I hope you guys are all out there writing and creating your own shows, because you guys are smart and you should be doing that.
Or your own something.
Yeah, your own something.
You know.
I think it
Is
did.
it progressive?
Yeah, actually, I've been thinking a lot, because someone tweeted at me about something on Once Upon a Time about, like, did this happen or not? It's like, well, we didn't write it, so we don't know. But you're free to think whatever you think. And I wrote something back about, like, a show is a collaboration between what we imagine and what you imagine. And so what you think is just as valid. If it hasn't been answered in the show, your answer is just as good as mine. And I think that husbands, I'd like to think that there's fans out there who are writing husband stories in their head and imagining Cheeks and Brady having a life beyond the edges of the screen. And I think I encourage that.
Well, and when you think about it, I mean, when you're a writer for a show that someone else has created, and so somebody else is running it, and it's the characters they've created, it's their universe. I mean, unless you're the person coming up with that original concept, you're a fan fiction writer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you are. You're going in and saying, I mean, you joined Buffy at what, season 3?
Yeah.
And you were a fan.
Yeah.
So you go in and
I go in
write
and go, what would I like these
fiction
characters
about
to
these characters
say?
that you were a fan of.
Oh, this is how I would like Spike to talk in this scene.
Right? So most Hollywood writers write fan fiction.
That episode Harsh Light of Day, where Spike gets the gem of Amari and he go fight them, that whole episode felt like fanfic.
We've got time for maybe one more question. Yes, I in the back.
Oh wait, but
The striking one?
The 3 people, we'll get all 3. How about it? Make it fast. Make it fast.
Question regardless, we wanted to say we were actually writing your characters in a good way and not putting them in all these stereotypes that a lot of other shows are doing right now.
It's very up.
Yeah.
okay.
It's just a thank you.
Oh, okay. I was like, I think I heard it, except for the question. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Who else had their hand raised in that last?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What do you guys think of like what Kevin Spacey said about what Netflix is doing with House of Cards and their online series?
What was the full extent? What he said? Because I heard
Pretty much that like or at least with Netflix, I haven't seen any networks ever say it, but that we see what the audience want and we're going to deliver it, unlike what music did and went and fought fans instead of providing it to them at a cheap enough rate where they'd go and pay for it.
Yeah, it's similar to something.
That
Different marketing.
is,
But that the viewing has changed for
it's a
most people.
well-intentioned ideology. Spoken by an actor.
Like the viewing habits have changed. More people are watching either DVR or watching the series all at once
Yes,
instead
to
of
an extent, yes,
appointment.
all of that I agree with for sure. But you don't want to become a short order cook. Right. You know, that mob mentality thing. And like if you study any Shakespearean tragedy, the audience of the time loved death, right? So it's like the more death, the better. So, I mean, even though Shakespeare was great and all that, you know, there are a lot of things where you look at his work and you go like, really? Was it really like the most essential thing to happen in the story? Was it like, oh, and now I must kill myself, and oh, she killed herself, so I must kill you, and myself. So if you can run into that, the most.
We wouldn't want to turn into Shakespeare.
Was there one last one?
Yeah, there's that guy over there.
I wanted to echo, I love the book and inside for it. And my just comment was, you guys were talking about real life. The USA Today at the hotel talked about the IRS is now.
Yeah, isn't that cool? I just saw that today too.
So I just imagine Cheeks and Brad discussion of, well, do we want to put all together? You make a lot more income, and so I just thought of that. Kitty.
Pros and cons.
I tweeted that yesterday, like, episode I did, Cheeks and Brady do their taxes. and then somebody said, like, it'd be really funny if Haley was there, and I tweeted back, Haley's their accountant. And I started picturing this scene with her adding machine.
I'm ready.
They don't know as much about each other's finances as they thought they did.
Oh, yeah.
The whole big brouhaha, and then the little dog gets involved.
Did we establish the dog?
Yeah, we need to reshoot the last scene. Jane, I just want to say the other day, what was it? Did you write something in lipstick?
Oh yeah.
She had such a Haley moment, and she didn't even realize it. What was it? You made a sign?
There was a sign. We were at the Geeky Awards, and they had the tables all had numbers on them, and you were assigned to a table. We were assigned to table 6. The sign on table 6 was identical to the sign on table 9.
There was nothing to
There was nothing to tell you which way up it went. So I wrote 6 under it in lipstick.
I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, that was smart. They wrote 6. She's like, I wrote that. I was like, I got lipstick? She's like, huh? And I said, you have a mascara wand and a top. It was amazing. She's more like Haley than you would think.
A pleasure as always.
Oh.
Yay!
This is kind of a wild and free-flowing one, and you guys just surfed with it. So
We have a signing tomorrow.
That's our role.
Oh, you're gonna sign?
4 p.m.
yes, it's International House South, M, which must be Marriott. So come by, and those of you with books, bring the books.
We have fancy new husbands posters.
Yeah, there's gonna be husbands, and we also sign anything, babies and
I signed belly buttons.
pets and stars and a lot of.
I had to sign a girl's arm because she was going to get it tattooed, and it was right next to Neil Gaiman. I was like, okay.